Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Thank you for joining us. It's going to be an exciting show this morning because we have former congressman, current Assemblyman, chair of the Steuben County Republican Committee, and that's all one person, and that's Joe Sempolinski, and he's going to be joining us in the 7 o'clock hour. We've got a couple comments to begin the program, and we've got a lot of breaking news to get to as well. And I should mention, we do have a very special guest at 6:45, celebrating a major birthday, one of the biggest fans of Frankly Speaking. We're going to hear from her at 6:45. But first, comments from viewers. Morning, Frank. Well, good morning. This might interest you. I was standing in line at a supermarket and saw the following headline. Quote, proof that Biden was a puppet, end quote. I believe it was the National Enquirer that put out the news, but it's news that you and I already knew. Thank you very much. I have not seen that one. But there is an interesting book. We've got other comments, but there is an interesting book that is coming out talking about the Biden administration. I didn't plan to jump ahead of this, and I should have been better prepared for that. But the book says that Democrats actually planned for Biden to withdraw from the presidential race or, quote, die in office as far back as 2023. That's from a new book that is coming out, while the White House, party officials, and media members like MSNBC host Joe Scarborough publicly testified to Biden's fitness for office. Aides to Vice President Kamala Harris privately had strategic sessions around the possibility that Biden might die in office, according to Jonathan Allen and Amy Parnes in their upcoming book, Fight Inside the Wildest Battle for the White House. Officials at the Democratic National Committee engaged in similar prep work, according to Allen and Parnes. Quote, when hush-hush talks starting in 2023, DNC officials gamed out Biden withdrawal scenarios, according to two people familiar with them. Quote, they wanted to make sure the party was ready for every possible circumstance. If Biden launched his campaign and then stepped aside before the primaries, if he won a bunch of primaries and then could not continue, if he secured enough delegates for winning the nomination but dropped out before winning a floor vote at the convention, and if he left a vacancy at the top of the ticket after taking the nomination. So what we know, or what we learned from this, I shouldn't say learn because we already did know it, is that there were a lot of people behind the scenes that knew of the mental decline of Joe Biden, but refused to report on it, refused to bring it to the public's attention. And it could potentially be the biggest scandal in presidential history. And remember, this is all while we were being gaslit, which I think that term is way overused, but accurate in this scenario, that everything's fine. As a matter of fact, you're a conspiracy theorist if you think differently. Chuck Schumer, who is in the battle of his life, which I want to actually make a note here. I want to talk to Joe about Schumer. That he was saying that you're a conspiracy theorist, a right-wing conspiracy theorist, if, not Joe, Chuck Schumer, if you believe Joe Biden was mentally fit. Now, we know what happened, but at the end of the day, but according to Allen and Parnes, top Democrats had fretted for months that he wouldn't make it all the way through a grueling campaign, and some still speculate, myself perhaps included, that that is why they moved the debate up so early, to try to be the straw that broke the camel's back and end the campaign. One official involved in secret talks put a fine point on the fear that Biden would not make it to Election Day as the party's nominee. It shows what we had to do to prepare with the unique circumstances we had, which was an 80-plus-year-old president who was running, the book claims. Inside the White House, one of the key figures involved with the contingency plan was Harris's then communications director, Jamal Simmons, who even prepared a death pool roster of judges who could quickly be called to swear Harris into office if necessary. While he never told the vice president about the death pool roster before leaving her camp, he demanded to be notified immediately if something happened to Biden because he had worked out an entire communications strategy. Wow. So that book, I'm not sure when the book is coming out, if it mentions it. The Guardian was the first to report on it. It says Democrat luminaries privately urged Biden to consider throwing in the towel, with his former boss, Barack Obama, asking point blank, "What is your path?" Allen and Parnes have both previously written books on Trump's 2016 and 2016 victory and 2020 defeat. Their book is slated for publication April the 1st. Okay, comment from a different viewer. Hi, Frank. Well, hi. Watching a little Fox News. Charles Payne from the show Making Money on Fox said young men are not working. We need to get them in the workforce and pay a better wage and remove illegals that work for less. I agree. He also said, apparently, we have 4 branches of government now: the executive, the legislative, the judicial, and the district judge. Thank you for bringing that up. That segues in to the judge that's in, well, the focus, if you will, of the Trump deportation case, has now ordered the preservation of the signal messages. Of course, that signal message scandal that the media has now reported on for, a full week. U.S. District Judge James Boasberg. Here is someone, and we had this a lot in Trump's first term, and then, of course, we had it when Trump was running for re-election. These activist judges that like the fame, like being invited to the cocktail parties, getting the pat on the back, having very nice things said about them in the media, and so they become almost drunk on this power, if you will. James Boasberg ordered all parties involved in the Trump administration's leaked signal chat to preserve disclosed messages, giving him additional time to evaluate the administration's handling of the infamous group chat. A lawsuit filed by the left-leaning government transparency group American Oversight asks whether senior cabinet officials violated federal record-keeping laws by using Signal to discuss plans for military strikes on the Houthis in Yemen. The chat became infamous after it was revealed that the top U.S. officials had inadvertently included Jeffrey Goldberg, as you know. So that name, be prepared to hear it a lot because he's liking the fame, he's liking the attention, he's liking clicking on the CNNs of the world and seeing his picture. So to that viewer's point, the 4 branches of government, the executive, the legislative, the judicial, and the district judge. Comment from another viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. Looking forward to a Friday favorite and would like to ask Joe what he thinks is the biggest problem we have with Congress today. Thank you. Well, thank you. Yes, Joe is a Friday fan favorite. He's going to be joining us at 7, and I will put that on my list to ask him that exact question. So thank you very much. Now, the unfortunate breaking news yesterday is that Elise Stefanik, her nomination for the UN ambassador has been pulled. Now, I had a lot of people texting me about this and asking me, not that that matters. I know everybody in the media says that. I had so many texts. No one cares. But the reason I bring that up specifically is not because I get a lot of texts, but it's because a lot of people are saying, boy, this must be really hurt Elise Stefanik. I have maybe a little different take on it. I'm going to be really interested to pick Joe Sempolinski's brain on it, because I think Elise Stefanik really knows politics. She really knows what is best for the Trump agenda. And I don't think this came as a surprise for Elise Stefanik. And I think if, I'm not going to speak for Elise Stefanik, but I think if you could ask her in this scenario, if the roles were reversed and you were president and it was Trump in Congress and could be UN ambassador, would you pull the nomination? I think she'd say yes. Or if you could make that decision yourself, would you? Because at the end of the day, it's what's best for the MAGA agenda and also what's best for the country. Trump took to Truth Social, saying that Stefanik will stay in Congress. I have asked Elise, as one of my biggest allies, to remain in Congress to help me deliver historic tax cuts. great jobs, record economic growth, a secure border, energy dominance, peace through strength, and much more, so we can make America great again. With a very tight majority, I don't want to take a chance on anyone else running for Elise's seat. The people love Elise, and with her, we have nothing to worry about come Election Day. There are others that can do a good job at the United Nations. Therefore, Elise will stay in Congress, rejoin the House leadership team, and continue to fight for our amazing American people. Speaker Johnson is thrilled. It is very disappointing. I think Elise Stefanik was the perfect person for that role as UN ambassador. But having said that, it comes as really no surprise because it is such a tight majority. I think it's, 218 to 213. Now, she was on, I think it was Hannity's program yesterday, saying that this is about stepping up as a team. I'm doing that as a leader to ensure that we can take hold of this mandate and deliver these historic results. She said that she has had multiple conversations with Trump about the decision and that she is committed to delivering results on behalf of the American people. I have been proud to be a team player. The president knows that. Now, the Congresswoman also blamed our Governor, Kathy Hochul, and the highly politicized radical left for forcing Trump's hand. The reality is, as Democrats as we see in New York State, it is totally corrupt. Kathy Hochul started threatening to move the ball on the election date, and you see a highly, highly politicized radical left trying to do everything they can to defeat the president. And that's a good point, because Governor Hochul threatened to not move the special election to primaries in June, but actually wait until November. So leave the people of the 21st Congressional District without representation for, well, if she would have been sworn in early on, almost a full year. Trying to originally wield that power. Even some Democrats were saying, boy, for a party that says we're pro-democracy, that looks very, very bad. But it did not stop Governor Hochul from making the threat and then pulling back. But that was still on the table. That's what's important to note, that was still on the table. It was not completely shelved. Governor Hochul, kind of notorious at this point for the making a threat and then being too weak to follow through on it. Stefanik continued, so it really came to a culmination today, but it was a combination of the New York corruption that we're seeing under Kathy Hochul, special elections, and the House margin. House Speaker Mike Johnson and Trump both indicated that Stefanik would be offered a spot on the GOP House leadership team, though her former position as conference chair is currently being filled by Representative Lisa McClain. The lawmaker, Elise Stefanik, wasn't specific about what post she wanted to take, but said she plans to continue speaking out. The good news is, because I'm not pending confirmation, the American people will be hearing a lot more from me, because you're limited in what you can say when you are pending confirmation. So there you are. Elise Stefanik's nomination, which is disappointing. We all know she would have done a fantastic job in that position. But taking one for the team, good for her. And as I said, I don't think this comes as any surprise for Elise Stefanik. I think she knew this was coming. It was only a matter of time. Hoping, beyond hope, that she could be UN ambassador. But at the end of the day, knowing full well this was the most likely outcome. All right, we got to take a short break. Keep those comments coming in. Keep those waves coming in. And we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. Comment from a viewer. I totally agree with you, Frank. Well, thank you. Elise will definitely have another position one day, but I think President Trump made the right decision, and I'm sure that she was prepared, and I commend her for taking it on. I agree. I think it's just a feather in her cap of an already, at 40 years old, an illustrious career with even more potential in the future. So I'm with you. I think I agree with you agreeing with me. But I do think, if anything, this proves just really the team player that she is, and understanding what the agenda was about or is about, and what the election was all about. And so I commend her for it. Now, just to show you how the media works, CNN, specifically Stephen Collinson, suggests that this decision to pull her nomination from UN ambassador is the end of Trumpism as we know it, practically. Representative Elise Stefanik's swift rise was a barometer of the power of Trumpism. But a sudden interruption in her ascent reveals warning signs for the White House and caps a tough week in which the inevitable reverberations of President Trump's political shock therapy began to threaten his agenda. Trump withdrew Stefanik's nomination to serve as UN ambassador to the United Nations on Thursday, indicating concern about a special election in her seat given the already tiny Republican majority in the House. I don't believe that to be factually accurate at all. That is a solid Republican district. I don't believe Trump or Speaker Johnson or any Republican was concerned about that seat being flipped. It was Governor Hochul's threats to wait until November and leave the people of the 21st Congressional District without representation. I think it was about some Republicans, and I think we're all prepared for this, and I don't really want to say it, but there are going to be some Republicans that are going to be the fly in the ointment, whether it's something isn't perfect enough as a conservative, that fly in the ointment, or the kind of rhino Republicans that have been looking for any excuse, and we mentioned this early on in the program, looking for any excuse to switch from the MAGA agenda to distance themselves from Trump. And when I say we talked about this very early on, I mean in the Signal app controversy, scandal, that could be the opportunity for some of the more rhino Republicans to say, okay, here's my window to, I guess, go back to my true beliefs, which is moderate to Democrat beliefs. So that's what the concern was. The concern was not that seat was going to be lost because Trump's agenda is so unpopular. It's like we said earlier this week when CNN even was forced to admit that Trump is more popular than ever, as you recall, where they said that the polls show that the country is on the right track. It is through the roof. The CNN host that said it, or pollster, said it was a reality check for their leftist viewers. All we talk about is how unpopular Donald Trump is. But in reality, he's basically more popular than he was at any point in term number one, and more popular than he was when he won the election back in November. So when you compare Trump against himself, he's actually closer to the apex than he is to the bottom. And of course, that's so important because Donald Trump, historically speaking, has had his numbers underestimated. So again, it's hilarious to look at. The same happened. I think I mentioned it quickly yesterday, though we may have ran out of time, where they are pointing to a state Senate seat in Pennsylvania, not a federal Senate seat, not a United States senator, a state Senate seat in Pennsylvania, and says that because a Democrat won the seat, that it's the end of Trump, it's the end of Republicans. But remember, this is the same party that when the historic election in November happened, it was a landslide where Trump won the White House. Of course, Republicans won the House and the Senate. Trump, and just as a side note, Trump also won the popular vote, that they claim that was not a mandate. This is what we're talking about. And I know we talked about it a lot yesterday. I know we continue to talk about it a lot, but this is what the media does. They're so predictable, but being so predictable doesn't make them any less frustrating, does it? All right. And trust me, I'm going to be talking with Joe Sempolinski about that exact issue with Stefanik. I might even save that article out to the side and mention it to him. Now, by the way, Marco Rubio, as an update from something we bring you up on the program a lot lately, a little tongue twisted. Marco Rubio says he's revoked at least 300 student visas from these anti-Israel, anti-American campus agitators. He said he's looking every day for these lunatics, warning that if you come to the U.S. to create a ruckus, you'll be kicked out. Great use of the word ruckus. It might be more than 300 at this point, he said. We do it every day. Every time I find one of these lunatics, I take away their visas, saying that there is zero tolerance for foreign visitors, including international students who support terrorist organizations or threaten national security. So kudos to Marco Rubio for looking every day for these lunatics. And that's, of course, in reference to the anti-Israel, anti-American protesters that unfortunately we talk about on a daily basis. And if we look at Columbia University, specifically the faculty, the staff very much involved as well, encouraging this anti-Semitism and this anti-Israel, anti-American protest or ruckus, as Senator Rubio said. Oh, wow. We got some in-person waves. We got some online waves. Keep them coming in. A couple other things we're going to get to here in a moment. Even a Greenland update as Vice President J.D. Vance and his wife Usha Vance look to visit Greenland. So we'll talk about that in a moment. A couple Elon Musk updates as well that I think you're really going to find interesting. And hopefully we have the opportunity to get to some New York State issues. Did you see the breaking news that there is some questions surrounding Mr. Cuomo and his right-hand woman, his top aide, Melissa Del Rosa? You probably are familiar with that name. As a matter of fact, at one point, her name was being thrown around to run for office. And just to show you how bad it is in New York City and in New York State in general, that she was a favorite in a poll, and they didn't even say what position she was running for. Well, according to bombshell testimony that was released yesterday, Andrew Cuomo and top aide Melissa Del Rosa had a, quote, emotional, romantic relationship. We may get to that, but I don't want to talk too much about Cuomo this morning because we have a lot to discuss. And as I mentioned, we have a very special guest coming up in just about 20 minutes here. We're going to hear from a very special guest, a big fan, perhaps the biggest fan of Frankly Speaking. Never misses it. And she happens to be celebrating a big birthday, big milestone today. In full disclosure, we recorded it yesterday, but we wish her a happy birthday today. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. A couple comments from viewers. I was feeling positive after hearing Sheriff Allard discussing a full staff come April and the hiring of corrections officers. But I believe late last night I heard yet another disruption. But it's not clear to me if there's another hold that would jeopardize this. Not sure I'm making sense, and perhaps I dreamt it. Thoughts? I don't want to suggest that you were dreaming it. I have not heard that, and I do have quite a few New York State sites that I go to. But I will say, if you didn't, not to this viewer, but if someone else missed the Sheriff Allard interview, number one, it's up on YouTube. But also, what this viewer is referring to is that the corrections officers that were fired by Governor Hochul, having their health insurance ripped away from them, and their families' health insurance ripped away from them, what Steuben County and other counties are doing. But specifically Steuben County, Sheriff Allard said, well, we have not been at full staff in the jail since COVID. Now, I had a full staff since COVID. So this is an opportunity, and we need to strike the iron when it's hot. And I think, don't quote me exactly, but I think the background process has already been done on 12 of these corrections officers. That's a number that sticks in my head. And as a matter of fact, again, I would highly recommend you watch the interview on YouTube. But one of the things he said, and I can quote it because there's an article up on WYDC TV, Big Fox. It was 12. On 12, the sheriff said, these are people that stood up and said no more. We are not going to do illegal stuff and be treated poorly anymore. That's my kind of people. Yeah, I love that line from the sheriff. So I have not heard about maybe the disruption you're talking about. I'm not, someone else can correct me if I'm wrong. But I know as of right now, the process is still ongoing, and I think it's a positive for Steuben County, and I feel bad for the corrections officers that, as the sheriff rightly put, had taken up the job in corrections. And it does pay more at the state level, taken on that responsibility, thinking that they would eventually retire from that job. But because the safety issues became too much, because the hours, the mandatory, sometimes 24 hours, 36-hour shifts became too much. So they called out the safety issues, and rightfully so. And it cost them their job. Now they've been out of work for 2 months. And as the sheriff said, it doesn't pay as much at the local level, but still an amazing opportunity for Steuben County, and we wish all those corrections officers the best of luck. Comment from a different viewer. Morning. Well, hey, good morning. I wonder if this is a question that Joe might be able to shed some light on. Who are the Republican candidates who will be running for New York State governor, and are any of them strong MAGA supporters? We will ask him that. I know no one has officially declared. By the way, I know you sent in another text, viewer. We'll save that one for when Joe's actually on the program, but thank you. No one has officially declared that I'm aware of. I know one of the names being thrown around, and he's made it pretty clear that he's planning on running, but has not made it official, is Representative Mike Lawler. But that's the only one that I'm familiar with at the time, but we'll ask Joe. Also, I wanted to ask, did anybody go to the NYSEG forum yesterday? If so, what were your thoughts? What were your experiences? I'd like to hear from you. By the way, RFK Jr. plans to slash, what about 20,000 jobs from HHS, Health and Human Services? Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. unveiled his plans yesterday to cut his workforce by about 10,000 current full-time employees, which saves an estimated $1.3 billion annually. That move means that HHS's total workforce will fall from 82,000 to 62,000 since the start of the second Trump administration, because there's already been 10,000 workers that opted to leave the government on their own accord, according to the announcement. So you've got 10,000 more on top of the 10,000 that probably said, well, I kind of liked working from home. You're going to make me come back? Nah, I'm good. Which shows you a little bit about the bureaucracy. And I think there's a great piece, and I could tie it in with Doge, which we'll be talking about in a moment. Because again, 20,000 jobs total so far, well, in the works to be cut from Health and Human Services. Can you imagine that? Like he said, it's an entire alphabet soup of departments. To think that many people are working for Health and Human Services, 82,000 people. But that leads to the piece, and we are going to talk about Doge here in a second, leads to the piece, how Trump caught big government fans in their own trap. And I thought that was a great way of putting the headline, because you've seen some of these people in the media, some Democrats and others, saying, we want smaller government, but, it's always but, we can't make any cuts. If the academic establishment is now fully realizing the power that its federal patron has over higher education, maybe it should have made a little more time for libertarian critiques of government power all along, meaning that more people should have spoke about this government power, not when it just directly affects them. I thought it was a good point that the big government fans have been caught in their own trap. We've got other comments coming up and some other breaking news. How am I doing on time? I'm running late. By the way, Trump says we need Greenland for international safety and security ahead of the Vance trip. It's an island from a defensive posture and even offensive posture. It's something we need. When you look at the ships going up the shore by the hundreds, it's a busy place. Now we know that J.D. Vance, this is right before J.D. Vance and Usha Vance are going to visit Greenland. Very interesting. Wow, we got an active crowd this morning. Look at that. 14 waves coming in already. Great comments. Everybody's excited. When Joe Sempolinski's on the program, you're going to be even more excited because I think we're going to have a new fan favorite. I think Joe may be ousted from his position as a fan favorite. And that's coming up in about 10 minutes. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Before we go to a comment, I don't want you to forget, just because we've been having a blast all week with the great music from the Crystal Chords, the Mark Twain Chorus, I don't want you to forget about this Saturday's show. Performances by the Mark Twain Chorus, Crystal Chords, and more, and it's featuring Harmony Inc. 2024 International Championship Quartet, Roulette, again at Horseheads High School this Saturday. Doors open at 6:30. The performance begins at 7 p.m. So don't miss that, and thank you again to Joe Barlow, the members of the staff meeting quartet, and Metaphor, the sent-in music, played music here in the studio. We really appreciate it. And on Monday, I can't wait to hear from you about what you thought of the performance. Okay, comment from Steve. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning, Steve. The Democrat Party will eat their own. They prove it over and over again. If you don't fall in line and agree with their agenda, they will do everything in their power to destroy lives and businesses. They don't care what the final outcomes are, even when they are destroying their own party and old belief system. When will they realize what is right in front of them? Thank you very much, Steve. Elon Musk said the Doge team is, he actually offered, I should say, a unprecedented peek kind of behind the curtain on a special report yesterday, if you missed it. Musk told Bret Baier, we want to reduce spending by eliminating waste and fraud and reduce the spending by 15%, which seems really quite achievable. The government is not efficient, and there's a lot of waste and fraud. So we feel confident that a 15% reduction can be done without affecting any of the critical government services. He said, this is a revolution, and I think it might be the biggest revolution in government since the original revolution. But at the end of the day, America is going to be in much better shape. It's going to be a fantastic future. As of March 27th, so as of yesterday, Doge at doge.gov claims on its site that it has saved Americans $130 billion. So that is $807.45 per taxpayer, per you. He believes that $1 trillion target is quite achievable. He expressed confidence in getting to that goal, saying his team was averaging $4 billion a day, every day, 7 days a week. Wow. America will be solvent, said Musk. The critical programs that people depend upon will work, and it's going to be a fantastic future. And we are going to get a lot of Are we going to get a lot of complaints along the way? Absolutely. Now, if Musk's $4 billion a day rate holds, that would amount to $520 billion within the 130-day window in which he's legally allowed to serve as an unpaid special government employee. So he only has a 130-day window. He said, I think we will accomplish most of the work required to reduce the deficit by $1 trillion within 130 days. Our goal is to reduce the waste and fraud by $4 billion a day, every day, 7 days a week, and so far we are succeeding. He also said, and this is an important point because I know the media and the left keep harping on Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. That is, and this is not new to Musk, Doge, and Trump. This is historically what Democrats do. They always say the Republicans are going to go after Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. It's just not the case. Unfortunately, the media is more than happy to get people worked up into a tizzy, more than happy to divide the country, to get the ratings, to sell the papers, whatever the case may be. They have no problem with that, or more importantly, not even the ratings, to push their agenda. They don't have a problem lying about that. So unfortunately, you see people that are concerned about their Social Security, that are watching MSNBC, and it works them up. And it's one of the reasons why Trump attacks the media so frequently, and it's one of the reasons why the media has lost their credibility with the American people. Not all media, but the legacy and mainstream media. Now, I'm going to try here. Aram Moghadassi, a Doge software engineer, spoke about the reforms being made at the Social Security Administration amid reports of website problems impacting the 68 million Americans who receive retirement, disability, and survivors benefits. Quote, I'll say the two improvements that we're trying to make to Social Security are helping people that legitimately get benefits, protect them from fraud that they experience every day on a routine basis, and also make the experience better. When you want to change your bank account, you can call Social Security. We learned 40% of the phone calls that they get are from fraudsters who are trying to steal payments. That's when Musk chimed in, saying, in fact, what we're doing will help their benefits. Legitimate people, as a result of the work of Doge, will receive more Social Security, not less. I want to emphasize that. As a result of the work of Doge, legitimate recipients of Social Security will receive more money, not less. The 94-year-old grandmother is actually a result of Doge's work going to get her checks. She's not going to be robbed by forces like she's getting robbed today. And the solvency of the federal government will ensure that she continues to receive those Social Security checks. The reason we're doing this is because if we don't do it, America is going to go insolvent and go bankrupt, and nobody's going to get anything. Airbnb co-founder Joe Gebbia, a fellow billionaire, discussed his work with Doge on digitizing the retirement process for government employees, which currently is done on paper, limiting retirements at about $8,000 per month. It's an injustice to civil servants who are subjected to these processes that are older than the age of half the people watching the show tonight. We really believe that the government can have an Apple Store-like experience, beautifully designed, great user experience, modern systems. Now, Elon Musk saying that he was shocked. I don't know what I did with that article, but he said he was shocked at the attacks on Tesla. Tesla dealerships. We know in upstate, it's been reported here that there is going to be, that there are going to be protests against Tesla, saying that the vandalism spree, he calls it a great wrong against a peaceful company. I think it's a great wrong that's being done to the people of Tesla and to our customers. I mean, Tesla's a peaceful company that has made great cars, great products. That's all it's done. It hasn't harmed anyone, and yet people are committing violence. A suspect was actually arrested with a Molotov cocktail attack on a Vegas Tesla dealership that, quote, has all the hallmarks of terrorism. Numerous cars also had their windows smashed, while slogans like resist were scrawled in red spray paint. Paul Hun Kim, 36, was arrested by the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department with the help of the FBI a week after at least 3 cars became engulfed in flames. Pam Bondi said, we won't negotiate plea deals on any anti-Tesla violence case. This was on Laura Ingram's program. She said that was remarkable police work, working with the state police, our FBI. They have been going nonstop on this case. The guy's in custody. Laura, he's facing a 5-year minimum mandatory to 20 years in prison. And this was great police work. This guy thought he got away with it. So these people better look out. They better cut it out because we're coming after you. And at my direction, there will be no negotiating with these people. We are seeking 20 years in prison. They're setting off bombs, the huge fires. Look what you're seeing, huge massive fires in residential neighborhoods at charging stations. Someone is going to get killed. A citizen is going to get killed. And these people, we are not doing any plea negotiations on them, so they better cut it out. All right, on that note, as I've been saying all morning, when we come back from break, we have a very special guest. You are not going to want to miss this. If you're out in the kitchen making breakfast or getting coffee, stop, sit down, and watch after this break, as it is arguably the biggest fan of Frankly Speaking, who's celebrating a very important birthday today. So happy birthday. We'll hear from her coming up. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and we are broadcasting from the Hesselson studio. And I'm extremely nervous because we have the biggest Frankly Speaking fan in the universe. Is that right, Lulu? Yeah? Do you watch Frankly Speaking every morning?
Say
You can say yes.
Yeah.
Yeah? Do you like the show? Now, I understand that, correct me if I'm wrong, tomorrow is a very big day. What's tomorrow?
My birthday.
It's your birthday? How old are you going to be? 4 years old? No way. What are you going to do for your birthday?
Have a party.
You're going to have a big party? And what? Tell me about today. What are you doing today? Because it looks like you're having a lot of fun.
Hey, Daddy.
You're hanging out with your dad. Get to see Market Street. What do you think of the studio? Yeah, you like it? Thumbs up? Yeah. So, now, because I found out it was your birthday, can you sit there and wave at the camera for just a second? Yeah? Just wave. Wave. Okay? All right, you wave for a second. Okay? All right, here we go. Just keep waving. Have fun. There you go. I know it's a little early. And you can't eat this because your dad's taking you out to... You want to blow out the candle for your birthday early? Oh, give it another shot. There you go. There's your...
What do you say?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, I'm so glad that you could be on Frankly Speaking today. Was it as fun as you thought it would be? Yeah? Well, I hope that you have a very happy birthday tomorrow and you have a fun day today. And I hope that you'll be back on the program soon, okay? Okay? Tell me how it goes when you watch it tomorrow, okay? All right. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Stay with us. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Thank you to Lulu for being our guest this morning. A big happy birthday. Because today is her actual birthday. We recorded it yesterday. Her father is our mailman here at the station. And he makes the poor girl watch Frankly Speaking every morning. But she's the biggest fan, and we appreciate it. So happy birthday. Ken writes in, Frank, why are the Democrats so upset on eliminating waste and fraud that it forces them to lie? It's simple. One man's waste and fraud is another man's monetary compensation. Thank you very much. Very true, Ken. I couldn't agree more. That's why there is such a fight. That's why there are so many people in Washington that are upset at the cuts. And like that one piece by Rich Lowry said, Trump has painted them into a corner. Because how many times have we heard, well, we all want to cut out waste and fraud and corruption, but there's always the but. And of course, you know right then and there that they would not do anything about it. There would be nothing, especially like we're seeing with Doge and the major cuts done by any of the kind of, as Trump would call them, swamp or the Washington elite. Yesterday, early afternoon, and then we learned more about it. The top MS-13 leader, who has been described as the worst of the worst, arrested in Virginia during the major Trump-backed operation. Pam Bondi and Kash Patel are touting the arrest of an MS-13 gang leader outside Washington, D.C., and they say he is one of the top kingpins for the brutal gang in the U.S. Henry, I don't know how you would say this, Jazu Villatoro Santos, a 24-year-old illegal migrant, was booked on weapons charges on Thursday morning after a raid near Dale City, Virginia. He is just one of 340 illegal migrants, migrant criminals, I should add, busted by a new FBI task force this month alone. All right, as an update, and I know I'm moving kind of quickly here because we do have former Congressman, current Assemblyman Joe Sempolinski joining us in the 7 o'clock hour. And we look forward to that, so get your questions in. But we've been talking about Jasmine Crockett. Jasmine Crockett is a Democrat representative from Texas who has been saying some very radical things, some very, some would say divisive things, alluding to violence against Ted Cruz, alluding to encouraging her supporters to violence against Musk. And then, of course, the despicable reference to Governor Greg Abbott, who is in a wheelchair, calling him Governor Hot Wheels. Well, Kristen Fleming has kind of a salacious clickbait headline until you read the full thing. Thanks, Jasmine Crockett. You're the absolute best at making the right look good. How much do I love Jasmine Crockett? Let me count the ways, Kristen Fleming says. Whether the Texas Congresswoman is verbally throwing down in the halls of Congress like she's angling to be Andy Cohen's favorite housewife, lip syncing on TikTok, or insulting people with disabilities, she's simply perfect. I hope she never changes. Keep shining that light all over cable news. The Democrat has been taking the country by storm with her thundering political rhetoric, shaming weaklings who aren't willing to fight against the rising tide of Trumpism. Kristen Fleming continues, in her latest bid to win the hearts and minds, Crockett called Texas Governor Greg Abbott, who uses a wheelchair after being paralyzed in 1984 when a tree fell on him, Governor Hot Wheels. I'm not going to read the whole quote because she cusses a lot. And then when people disagree with what she said, even The View disagreeing, she came out with a really kind of pathetically political statement saying, no, it wasn't about that. The wheels were in reference to the way they are using planes, trains, and automobiles to ship migrants out of the state. As a transportation enthusiast and human rights advocate, Crockett was simply swept up in the moment. So much so that she even managed to do the impossible. She got The View to actually disavow a statement from her. But if you look at the actual reporting on her, she is labeled a rising star of the Democrat Party. Again, I can't read a lot of what she says. Now, Crockett is angling for a starring role, one that is completely open as the power structure in the Democrat establishment has eroded. You can find her flooding the zone on cable news, making totally awesome TikToks in the guise of a Mortal Kombat fighter, and threatening to punch Senator Ted Cruz. Quote, I mean, this dude has to be knocked over the head, like hard, right? Like there is no niceties with him, like at all. Like you go clean off on him. That's what she said about Ted Cruz. She even promised a Crockett clapback collection on X, writing, this collection will feature various swag that includes random things I've said. So she wants to not so much be a representative as she more or less wants to be an influencer, not just on social media, but on outlets like MSNBC. Kristen Fleming is saying, I have to admit, I don't know what she stands for policy-wise, nor it seems does she, but I admire that she is truly a woman of our reality show era, where juvenile bad behavior is rewarded and exalted. A recent poll from NBC News said that 27% of registered voters say Democrats are doing a good job. The left is desperate to change course, and politicians have been auditioning to lead the party like it's a weird season of American Idol. Yes, they see the leadership void from Chuck Schumer. Crockett is jostling with the likes of Bernie Sanders and AOC, who are on the Fight the Oligarchy tour. Scandal-scarred Gavin Newsom, who is actually trying to take the leadership reins, but doing so by pretending that he's more conservative than he actually is. Funny enough, this is what she told Forbes of the GOP. This is Jasmine Crockett. When they can't come after you on substance, they revert to nasty attacks that lack any complex thoughts. That's what she said in the past. Jasmine Crockett. So as Kristen Fleming so astutely points out, did I mention how self-aware she is? Crockett is extremely effective at lobbing grenades, which somehow seem to only hurt herself and her own party. She clearly loves the limelight and will exercise zero restraint in pursuit of it. And Dems should be way more frightened of her than the GOP will ever be. And you see it because she raises so much campaign cash when she has these outlandish statements, because there's people, it's very much like the protests that we've been seeing, there's people that feed off of this, some would call it stupidity, meaning in the language that they're using, the comments that they're using, the childish attacks that they're using. But again, that's where she makes her money. That's where she gets her name recognition. And there is a very real opportunity as Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi fall when it comes to actual power in leadership. They're in leadership positions, but with their actual power and sway. So people like AOC and Bernie out on a Stop the Oligarchy tour, getting large amounts of people, and Jasmine Crockett going on social media to call Governor. Well, that wasn't a social media, actually. She called him Governor Hot Wheels at a, what was it, inclusivity rally, ironically enough. Douglas Murray has a piece on her if you're interested. Free speech lessons from Jasmine Crockett and anti-Israel foreign students. Oh, there's the Assemblyman. Hold on. We got our security system there. There's the Assemblyman coming in right now. We'll take a short break. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, and in that studio, former congressman, current assemblyman, chair of the Steuben County GOP. I didn't write it down this time. It's too much to keep track of.
It comes up, this scenario comes up a lot in Albany. I tell everybody the answer is Joe.
Assistant professor at Columbia University.
No.
No.
No, I'm not.
That did not make the
See, now you're going to get me in trouble.
No. I'm just joking. Everybody knows. All right, a couple comments from viewers just to wrap things up, then you can talk with Joe. Good morning, Frank. This is Mark. Why? And by the way, good morning, Mark. Why should Democrats want to cut their own waste and hurt their own pockets? So it makes sense why they are fighting Doge and Trump.
I think there is a logic there, because the Democrats for many generations have been the party of expanding government. There is a reason that the 3 electoral votes that are a mortal lock for Democrats are the 3 from District of Columbia.
Yes.
And that is their best jurisdiction in the country by far, as far as D versus R, is because it's a lot of folks that work for the government. And so there is a sort of vested interest. There's an industry built around there being a lot of government spending. So I think the viewers' observation is an apt one. And I was never an assistant professor.
I know. I'm sorry. I should have made it. That was a complete joke. I know. I shouldn't have made it. We've just been talking about it so much. All right. Next up, Frank. Good morning. Well, good morning. Thought your wonderful sheriff, Phil Palmisano, we had the sheriff on the other day. This has been a very busy week.
Oh, good.
Wonderful sheriff, Assemblyman Phil Palmisano and Joe Sempolinski are always our favorites on your show, but they have been replaced by that cute little Lulu. She was the best. You made our day. Thank you.
I would say I am a father of a 5-year-old and a 6-year-old little girl, and it's 2 little girls, 5-year-old and 6-year-old, and so a 4-year-old's birthday, the sheriff and Phil and I, I think we all do a good job serving the people, but the people want to see kids, happy kids, meeting their heroes. Like Frank.
Forced hero. It's a kid that's put in front of the TV. What are they going to do? They got to look.
Listen, the kids got to learn about civics. They got to learn about government. It's a there's a problem in this country. The kids don't understand current events, and Lulu may be a future leader in this great society that we're building.
You should have heard her take on tariffs. No, so Joe, I know, I think you're going to have a unique opinion on this. I'm disappointed with Elise Stefanik, with what happened, but I understand it.
Yeah.
And I think it's amazing because you are very much like this, Joe. She's willing to take one for the team.
It certainly seems to be what just happened. And
but still, she would have been so good in that position.
I first met Elise when she was first running for Congress, and let me make sure I get the relationship right. Her now husband, then boyfriend, was like fraternity brothers with a guy that I was his TA in grad school. So that's the relationship when she was first running. And so the person that I was his TA, who later went on to work for the National Republican Senate Committee and was worked on the super PAC that supported J.D. Vance in the Senate primary, and so he's done very well for himself. But he calls me and says, "Hey, my buddy's girlfriend is going to run for Congress in upstate New York. The only person I know that's ever managed a congressional campaign in upstate New York. Can you talk to her with some pointers?" All right, sure. So we set up a phone call, and this is a long time ago. It was when she was first running. And I didn't quite know what to expect, and we ended up talking for about 45 minutes. And she was delightful. She was clearly brilliant, and I thought she would do very, very well in that race. It was a situation she was at that point challenging an incumbent Democrat in the North Country. That Democrat subsequently decided not to run for re-election, and she was able to run for an open seat. And then when I was in Congress, she reached out to me and said, I'm going to endorse you. I'm going to support you. I'm going to put out the good word down in Washington where you don't know as many people and, help you raise money and all these things. And then when I was there, she helped show me around and get to know people. So all of the interactions I've ever had with Elise Stefanik, sort of a little bit over a very long time, have been really, I've left very positive and impressed. Obviously, there is a tight margin in the House, and so there is a electoral, political, just logic to trying to keep House members in there. I'm sure that the president must probably have somebody else in mind, but Elise apparently is going to keep serving the North Country, and she's going to keep serving in the House. I know that the Speaker said something about finding a leadership role for her.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of flex where the Speaker can appoint somebody to a position like maybe chair of leadership or something where you can wiggle that a little bit.
Yeah, because it's a missed opportunity if we don't.
Yeah,
have
because
her
she
in
didn't
some-
run for re-election as conference chair because the thought was she wasn't going to be there. And so I think that's probably appropriate to try and work her back in a way that you're using her talents to the full and best purpose. So I wish Elise nothing but the best, and I sort of agree with you where this is something where she is doing what appears from her perspective to be what's best for the party and what's best for the country and what's best for the president.
Yep.
And when the president asks you to, serve in a particular role or serve in a different role, then you sort of want to probably listen to the president.
Yeah, but when you see those videos, which I sometimes watch, it pops up on my YouTube of how she handled those college professors.
Yeah.
Imagine that in the UN.
Yeah, I served on that committee with her.
Yeah. Oh, that's
the
right.
Education and Labor Committee. That is where a lot of the most best clips of the
really
highlights
does. Yeah.
of Elise Stefanik, especially the ones with the college professors, college presidents, came from.
Yeah.
So I did serve on that committee with Elise Stefanik when I was in Congress, and I wouldn't want to be downrange of her questioning if I had been not on my best behavior as far as things, and she revealed and really got a conversation started that I think has continued to this day about really what are these so-called elite institutions
It's sick.
doing, and
Columbia is what they're doing is they're telling Trump one thing, and then we learn over the weekend that they're doing something else, telling their faculty who are just as radical as these anti-Semitic protesters, saying, "Don't worry, we're smarter than the president." They're going to learn a hard lesson, I think. And why are they getting that much money, by the way?
Well, and a lot of these colleges, these major, again, I put elite in quotes, colleges get an enormous amount of federal money for different research projects, and some of which are, more dubious than others.
Right.
The idea is supposed to be that, we need the best new technology for the Defense Department, or we need the best new technology for the Energy Department, or whatever it is, and you get cutting edge researchers to do that. Sometimes it's stuff that's a little bit more
in the weeds,
ideological.
yeah.
Perhaps might be a way to say it. So I think there certainly needs to be scrutiny at and that is the fundamental driving purpose of the Doge project. Is if we're going to spend taxpayer money when we're this far in debt and this far in deficit, we should probably really take a hard look at every penny. And some of these projects are some of the easiest thing to say, is that really what we need to be spending on when we don't have any money?
Right, exactly. One other thing just before we go to our first break. I thought it was interesting. So going back to Elise Stefanik, CNN, and specifically Stephen Collinson, suggests that essentially this is the end of Trumpism. And right. And then I thought about
the fact that the nomination got pulled?
Yeah.
That's a dubious, silly, bad analysis.
Well, it reminds me too of earlier this week when Republicans lost that Pennsylvania state Senate seat.
Yeah.
And I thought of all the times we were told that we don't have really the momentum as Republicans, even though we had that landslide victory in November. But now a state Senate seat, and they're saying it's the end of Trump and the end of MAGA.
If this was really about, we're scared we're losing special elections.
Right.
There are 2 special elections in Florida on Tuesday.
Right.
So if that's what this is really about, wouldn't you then just wait until Wednesday and see what happens in the 2 seats in Florida and then act accordingly? So it's clearly not about, it could not be by any logical conclusion about any particular special election, especially not a state senate special election in Pennsylvania, when again, if that's what you're worried about, you're going to get this big bucket of new information on Tuesday, and then this happened on Thursday. So it's clearly this is something that's a little bit longer term and different considerations.
Well, and the media just twists themselves up in the pretzels, just trying to say everything's the end of Trump.
Right? Yeah, they've been saying it's since the second he stepped off the escalator.
Yeah, really.
Every thing that has either been a bump in the road, and everybody's got bumps in the road, or has been something that's been manufactured into a bump in the road, or a narrative that's been sometimes just created out of whole cloth, has somehow been the end of Donald Trump. And that clearly has been wrong every time so far.
And that was interesting that CNN, I'm going to run late, CNN had to admit in the polling that he's more popular now than ever.
Yeah.
By his numbers, more popular now than ever, even more so than he was in November when he won.
No doubt about that.
That's amazing. All right, we got to take a short break. Stay with us. More from Joe Sempolinski when we return. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horsets. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, and in that studio we have Assemblyman Joe Sempolinski. A couple comments from viewers. This is in reference to Elise Stefanik. Wow, a real selfless act for the party and the country. Not quite as good as Biden, where he saved the country from Democrats. This will be rewarded in the future. I think, Elise Stefanik has no worries.
No, Elise, it clearly is not going anywhere. She's still going to be in the House, and I would not. Let's assume a scenario where in the midterm the Republicans have a wider margin. I could see her then going into the administration after the midterm. I think. Elise Stefanik has a lot of very nice positive options in her future, and she's somebody who has she's young. She's about within a couple of years of my age, and so she's got a long future ahead of her. I think she's going to do well, and I agree. I think that is the reaction most people are having, is that she took one for the team.
Yeah.
And
I like that she called out Governor Hochul too when she was talking about it last night.
Well, yeah, and Hochul. We talked about this on the show last time, and I was apoplectic when it looked like we were going to have that bill to allow her to hold that seat open until November. And certainly that would have been something that would have been. I'm so glad that bill we were able to get that bill pulled in the legislature, and it didn't go through. And there was. A lot of people watching in Albany on the Republican side fired up about that, including Elise, including President Trump. I can tell you for sure, as somebody who served in the House for a short period of time and took it very, very seriously, there was nobody more fired up than I was about that.
I agree. Comment from a different viewer. The Republican loss in Lancaster County probably had nothing to do with planting season in Amish country. Thank you.
There's a deeper point there that's very important, where a lot of times people try to extrapolate from a special election to the general election. And sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. But you have to remember there are things that are different about specials. They're not happening on the normal calendar. To the viewer's point, they don't have the same turnout as you do in a general election. There's only the most really people that follow politics the closest are the ones that vote on either side. And so it is you have to take any extraction from or any projection from a special election to the broader themes of national politics with a grain of salt. Certainly it's a data point, but you have to also remember it's a data point that you're sort of looking at through a fog because of all these other factors. So that's actually a very deep, insightful point from the viewer, so thank you.
So these are the 2 questions. So let me read both of them, but it's the same context. What does Joe think about the chances of someone running for governor of New York on a ticket focused on doging? And I don't know how you would say this, but making New York great again. But I don't know how you'd say it.
Yeah.
Someone told me
earlier.
Yeah,
that's a tough acronym. I know. I got you.
possibly that could stop the exodus of New York residents. That's from Ken. But hold on. Second comment, asking you, are there any Republicans so far running for governor, and are any of them MAGA? And then final comment, how about you running, Joe?
All right, we're going to go from the last one back.
Okay.
I will not be a candidate for governor in 2026.
Breaking news, frankly speaking.
Are you going to run?
No, I'm not going to run.
And I am flattered. And since my time in Congress, I have had people tell me that I could run for U.S. Senate or governor or other statewide type things. It's very flattering. I sort of take it as people think I'm doing a good job in the Assembly, and I did a good job in Congress. And certainly I love New York. There's a reason that I've stayed and I'm raising my kids here despite the silliness that comes out of the place where I work now. And so it's very nice and I appreciate it. But no, I am not going to be a statewide candidate in 2026. I've got 2 young kids. And
your wife would kill
my
you.
My wife would be... Yeah, I've put Mrs. Sempolinski through a lot of weird twists and turns over the last 4 years, and she's bared with. I'm very happy in the state assembly. My plan is to run for re-election to the state assembly in 26. So that will take that aside, but thank you very much. The idea of some sort of dose or I don't know, a state doge, I think is a great idea.
Yeah.
There's a lot to work with in New York. There's a bill that sort of would say, create a Department of Efficiency or whatever that I've co-sponsored that is along those. That's the genesis of the idea, was to sort of do that. A lot of the Republicans have co-sponsored that bill. Sort of discussion regarding governor. There is no announced candidate for governor yet. There are certainly people that are making the rounds and are thinking about it. The one that's gotten the most attention is Congressman Lawler. Mm-hmm. He is somebody I've known. This is Mike Lawler. He's a congressman from the Lower Hudson Valley. He's in his second term in Congress. Prior to that, he served 1 term in the state assembly. And prior to that, he's had a business, and he's been involved in politics. He was the executive director of the state party for a while. So through that type of background, I've known him for about 15 years.
Oh, wow.
And he's come up to the Capitol. He sort of gave the pre-buttal to the state of the state from the Republican side, and I stood with him there when he was doing that. I've had a chance to talk to him a couple of times during the legislative session, and I know he's thinking about it. He's somebody that's won 3 elections in a row, Assembly, Congress, in a part of the state that is the swing part of the state that you need to do a little better in to win. We've done really well recently on Long Island. We've done increasingly well in the city. The key to winning statewide is we need to make sure the turnout upstate is big.
Yes.
And the lower Hudson Valley, Westchester area, which is where Mr. Lawler's from, that has gone sort of the wrong way. We need to sort of stop the bleeding there. If you hold where we're at further downstate, you get those numbers up upstate, and you get a few extra votes in the Hudson Valley, the math starts to work. You can win a statewide race. So I am, certainly there's always the concern about the midterm effect, where when there's somebody in the White House, their party generally doesn't do as well in the midterm. However, the point you made in the last segment about how Trump's numbers have actually gone up.
Right.
The reaction people have had to the Trump administration, the results that Trump had in New York, and the results that Lee Zeldin had in New York in the last 2 big statewide elections gives me a lot of hope. And I think there is a very decent chance of having a Republican governor. I'm dramatically more hopeful about that than I was maybe 1 year ago. Again, I know Congressman Lawler's got to figure out whether he's going to do it. If he doesn't do it, there are other people that are thinking about it. A couple of the county executives are poking around. So I'm confident we're going to have a candidate that we can all get behind. Great. I do hope that we avoid a primary. Mr. Zeldin, if you remember, had a 4-way primary that caused him to spend an enormous amount of money that I think could have better been used going after Kathy Hochul. So I hope that the people, and it has to be a process from the bottom up if you're going to truly get that, as opposed to the top down. I do hope that there ends up being a consensus around a candidate. I hope we end up at that consensus pretty quickly.
Pretty quickly, yeah.
I was actually looking this morning. I was
sort of thinking about some of this stuff just at home as I was waking up this morning, and Lee Zeldin announced he was running for governor on April 8th of the off year. So we are a week and a half out from the point in the cycle when Lee got in the race.
Wow.
So I hope that whether it's the people I've alluded to or mentioned or anyone else that is a serious candidate, that they really start making practical, serious moves sooner rather than later. We saw the results from Lee from getting in the race far earlier than other candidates.
And that hard work. Yeah.
And not wasting that time. Using that time to get around the state and to raise money and raise his profile, and you saw the results, and now he's in the cabinet. That timeline is starting again, April 8th of the off year before the election is when Lee got in. So we're getting to the point where I would want all candidates to start making some really serious decisions.
In the past, it just seems like we waited till the end, and without the name recognition, it was an impossible battle.
I will give kudos to now Congressman Langworthy, because when Nick was the Erie County chairman and he ran for state chair, and I was the Subin chair, and he asked me for his support to become state chairman, and I did. I supported him when he ran, and my ask was, I need you to start the process on these statewide candidates earlier. And I remember having a meeting like early spring of 21, and we had like 20 different people that were even thinking about maybe ever, look in the mirror once and thought about being governor. And they all came to talk to us. And I remember talking to Nick after the meeting and say, listen, that was the one thing I asked you to do, start this earlier. This is the earliest we've ever started it. I appreciate it. And I think that decision to do that paid off a year and a half later, where we had our best statewide race in a generation. So kudos to former chairman, now my successor in Congress, Mr. Langworthy, on how he handled that.
Comment from a different viewer. Biggest problem we have with Congress today?
The biggest problem we have
This is turning into like
Congress today.
Actor's studio. I'm asking
that's right. Yeah. If you went to the pearly gates. No, that's an interesting question. I think the biggest problem we have with Congress today is, and some people have been alluding to this with Elise, is you have, and I think this is sort of more of a societal problem than a political problem, whatever. You need to have in a legislative body people that care about the common good more than they care about themselves, more than they care about being on television, although I'm on television right now, so it's funny to say
don't knock television.
Yeah, that's right. Television's great, but more than they care about their own publicity, more than they care about their own career, more than they care about making money, or getting a book deal, or magically trading stocks. But people that are truly there to serve the republic and preserve the republic and make the republic prosperous. And I would say that I don't think that's a partisan issue. I think that there are people of goodwill of a variety of different ideological perspectives. Some of them I think are very misguided.
Sure.
And their policies are destructive, and I would fight their policies. But the first step is being earnest about your purpose. And the first step is caring about the people and the health of our institutions, and being willing to have self-sacrifice to do that. So I think that's why the Elise Stefanik decision is resonating with people. I think that's why my story, as my sort of latter-day Mr. Smith Goes to Washington biography, has resonated with people, is because that's what people want to see, is people who are public servants serving the public as opposed to serving themselves.
It was a great question, right?
That was an excellent question.
Comment from a different viewer. Which is also excellent. They're
Yeah,
all excellent.
all our questions are excellent. Some are more excellent than others.
I don't want to realize that we have to keep setting the
That's
bar.
right. No, everything. We're going. This is like Plato's Academy here. We're finding truth here in the hot tub at the Heselson studio.
That's funny. Hochul claims she complied with ICE to get criminal illegals out, but not the other ones. What is your thoughts on that?
Yeah, she had a comment a few months ago saying, "Well, I'll be the first one to call ICE if there's a crime." And then has not revoked New York State's sanctuary status. You really can't do those two things at the same time. we had an interesting situation or moment in Albany. Tom Homan came to talk to the Republicans in the state legislature.
I heard about that.
And that was because
He's a superstar, by the way.
it was really interesting hearing things from the horse's mouth. And we had a chance to him to talk to all the Republicans in the Assembly and Senate behind closed doors, just giving us an update. And then we did a public press conference where he took questions from the press and protesters yelling at him afterwards and all those sorts of things. So it was very, there was an open, very open part of it as well. That came about because Mr. Homan, I believe, grew up in the Thousand Islands area of New York, and he grew up with Assemblyman Gray, one of my colleagues in the State Assembly Republican Conference. And so they're like, they grew up together.
Yeah.
And so he's like, next time you're in New York, can you come to the Capitol and tell us what's going on? And he obliged his childhood buddy, and we were able to hear from him what he's dealing with and his perspective from him, as opposed to filtered through the media, because obviously he's in some circles a controversial guy, and I think he sort of enjoys that.
He eats it up. It's so fun to watch.
And so hearing it directly from him was an interesting opportunity. And also his commentary, which he also said in public during the press conference about what Kathy Hochul's cooperation or non-cooperation with, and he emphasized to us behind closed doors and to the public that his goal is getting the worst of the worst criminals, people who are members of these violent gangs, people who are murderers, rapists, predators of a variety of nature, getting them first and dealing with that first. And so if you're not helping getting rid of murderers and rapists, why wouldn't you want them out of the country? That I don't understand.
Just like why would you not want to cut waste, fraud, and corruption?
Right.
They're on the wrong side of these arguments.
We can have discussions about particular programs. We can just have discussions about legal immigration and these sort of things, and legitimate asylum seekers and all that. But people that have committed horrific other crimes, things that are just wasteful or duplicative, why are we having fights about these things? Doesn't make any sense.
And by the way, and a viewer brought this to my attention, but I actually meant to bring it up before you came on the program, Joe. But out of Rochester, New York, Sanctuary City Mayor said that the police chief actually scolded the police chief for assisting Border Patrol officers who called for backup. She said it's against our policy. Just to give you an idea of what we're dealing with.
That doesn't
even need a comment. All right, we got to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, and in that studio, Assemblyman Joe Sempolinski. All right, Joe, comment from a viewer. They say this question is for Joe, which I think is funny because I wasn't going to field it.
If you like.
I think it's obvious.
I would love to hear your input.
I think it's obvious, but how detrimental do you think the 50 cents per hour raise in the minimum wage is going to be? It's obvious to this viewer that Hochul has increased it solely for political gain.
Yeah, you always got to be careful. Anytime you increase the minimum wage, the concern is that it has a counter effect to what you're trying to do. So the goal is to increase, obviously wages for workers. But, if you go into a McDonald's now, most of your orders are going through those kiosks, not somebody.
And we all knew it was going to happen.
Yeah, and as my first job was at a Wendy's, and I was the guy taking the orders in the drive-thru. So that is the concern. And then also on, a small business or a business that, if these go up 50 cents, well, what about the guy that was making 50 cents more than them? Well, then they got to go up 50
They've been
cents.
there 10 years.
And so certainly I want to be in a situation where we have a robust enough economy that the natural competition for workers raises wages, and the fact that we're opening all sorts of new businesses raises wages. And I want people to be paid fairly. I want people to be paid a decent wage for a hard day's work. But in New York, what we tend to do is we tend to sort of artificially force that. And then we also tend to have a lot of regulations that prevent that robust economic growth. So what we need to do is have less government, less regulations, less taxes, so that people want to come to New York to start a business. People want to expand a business in New York. And then there's competition for workers across all different levels of wages, and so we don't do a good job with that. But yeah, anytime you're dealing with a minimum wage increase, you've got to be sort of very careful about what are the unintended consequences for people, and are you maybe raising wages for some and freezing others out of the workforce. That has to be handled in a very thoughtful, meticulous way, and the New York State government and the federal government are not historically thoughtful and meticulous in how they handle things.
Another comment. You get a lot of comments from viewers and questions.
That's good. It means somebody's on the other end of the camera.
Exactly.
Right, yeah.
Good morning and happy Friday. Question for Joe.
Yeah, usually I'm here on Thursday.
Yeah, that's right.
Friday, yeah.
Yes. Do you see any Democratic rising stars who could compete with a Republican for the presidency in 2028? Now, this is interesting because before you came to the studio, you had sent me a signal message, as we normally do as we talk, and you were saying how much you find Jasmine Crockett refreshing.
See, now you keep.
I combined
you're
two.
You're going to get me in trouble.
I combined two breaking news
my
stories in
goodness.
one comment.
Yeah, Frank and I do not have a signal chat.
I don't even know what I don't even know that's what it's called.
Yeah.
I barely text.
We're getting actually, all joking aside, we're getting really good questions.
Yeah.
We usually get good questions
Yeah,
on this
absolutely.
show. This has been really
Thought-provoking.
top level
Yeah.
questions. This is a real problem for the Democrats.
Clearly.
You can't beat somebody with nobody. That's an axiom of politics.
Yes.
Like the situation could be in your favor, whatever. If they got somebody and you got nothing, it doesn't work. Now, Donald Trump is term limited.
Yeah.
So the Republicans are going to need somebody to replace Donald Trump. That's a legitimate issue for the Republicans. I think at this point the clear favorite is Vice President Vance. If you wanted me to guess who the Republican nominee is next time, it's probably Vice President Vance. We're a long way from here to there, but at least there's somebody you can point to as like, yeah, that's the prohibitive favorite. We'll see what happens, but he's the guy that's sort of sitting there as the heir apparent.
Yep.
That's not where we're at. The Democrat Party. So if you poll right now, it still says Harris.
Yeah, which makes sense because she spent
Right,
$2 billion.
Spent all the money
name
in the
recognition.
world.
Yeah.
So at this stage, there's a lot of it that's just name ID. But that's not something that's going to work, right? And then Mayor Pete, is in there.
They
and it's
try
like that
to
guy
force him on everybody, and it doesn't work.
And I've said this, I think, before in the program. The Secretary of Transportation is like the umpire at a Major League Baseball game. If you know his name, he's not doing a good job.
Right, exactly. That's a very good point.
And so we all know Mr. Pete.
Yep,
and
exactly.
it's because he didn't do a very good job.
No.
So if that's who you want to put up, okay, all right, well, there you got some problems there.
Yeah.
And then you get below that, and it's like 4%, 3%, and we're talking about people like AOC.
Oh, and did you see the New York Times come out with that? Not endorsing her.
Yeah, but just talking about AOC
basically saying
28?
put her in leadership position, and then, wow.
I mean, if the Democrats were on AOC, the Republican nominee, whether it's Vance or anybody else, whether it's this mug,
Yeah, I know.
they're going to get 400 electoral votes.
Pete Hegseth.
Yeah, right. Yeah, hey, maybe who knows? I don't know. So you've got a situation where on the Republican side, you have a crop of young, up and coming people that you could point to and say, okay, they could be
Brilliant
a president.
people, too.
You could imagine very easily J.D. Vance. Again, I think Vance is vice president. That's why, and I think he's the one that's in that inside lane. But you could talk about Secretary Rubio. You could talk about some of these other cabinet secretaries. You could talk about people from the legislature. Talk about governors. We've got a crop of young, aggressive people that you could imagine stepping into that role and not go, oh, that doesn't fit. The Dems are in disarray, and where some of the folks lead to, like an AOC, is doubling down on
What
weird.
I was just going to say, did you see Tim Walz saying, if they need me, I'll step in?
That guy is a disaster.
Yeah, when he suggested like people are calling for him to run for president, or anybody would.
The guy in the mirror,
Yeah.
I think is the only,
Not even
only
your
guy.
wife,
Yeah, no, I mean.
Unbelievable. We don't need to spend time on Wade's time on that.
Yeah. But that shows the status of the conversation where that's somebody that's still circulating around, somebody who is a really unsuccessful VP candidate, and so they're in a deep problem now. It's spring of 25.
Oh, right. Yeah.
The election is in November of 28.
Yeah, think of someone like Obama who came from out of nowhere.
No, that's two eternities in politics. We got the midterms. We've got whatever events happen. You got the economy between now. You cannot predict that far out. 3.5 years ago, I was doing some stuff that it's a long time.
You always did. Yeah, it's okay. It's perfect.
So
That's
excited.
perfect. All right, you made it worse.
So you have that long time. You just don't know what's going to happen. But if you said to me today, which party from a recruiting standpoint is in a better space going into the next presidential election by an enormous margin, it's the Republican Party, and I think even Democrats would have to admit that, no matter what they want to talk about some of these goofballs running.
Well, keep these great questions coming in. We're going to take a short break.
Fantastic question.
Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking. Speaking of Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Joe, I think we're starting to get a little too philosophical as we broadcast live from the SSN studio. No, you haven't heard this next question.
Oh, I haven't heard the next one. Oh, we're going deep.
This is a deep cut too. Right. Good morning, Frank. I will throw the curveball here. I would like to know what Joe's thoughts and insights are on the Pine City case of Peanut and the raccoon. Do you remember that story?
I do.
Does he feel that this was a case of government interference in this family's life?
So,
did you expect that this morning? Number one. Okay.
But I have a little anecdote.
Okay.
Because I did think it was government overreach.
I did too. Yeah.
You bust in, you kill a guy's animals. That's not enforcing an environmental regulation. That was overkill, literal overkill. It didn't need to happen. I tweeted at the time. I think the tweets should still be there. As the former congressman of Peanut the Squirrel or whatever, I'm appalled by the DC's actions. It was the highest performing tweet of my assembly campaign. It did the best numbers. And I think the reason it did is, one, it had funny names as animals or whatever. And but it was an example of the frustration people have in the state of New York with their government and with the Department of Environmental Conservation in particular. And it was such a stark example of, hey, this is what the government can do to you. They don't like you, they bust in, they kill you.
And I don't like what happened. I'm talking on a political point of view here, that it was perfect timing because of when the election was. Yeah. I'm just saying on a political.
Yeah, it was like a week or two before the election.
Yeah, they're bringing it up at the Madison Square Garden rally, which, by the way, was supposed to destroy Trump, if you recall. Neil Gorsuch brought it up.
Yeah. It really, you can get something that has a little bit of quirkiness to it. I guess people pay attention and then they realize it's a case study in a much bigger issue that they've been concerned about. That's a very powerful narrative. So literally, I made a joke that I was these animals' former congressman, which I was. Yeah. Obviously, animals can't vote, but whatever. It literally was the highest numbers of any tweet of the Assembly campaign window.
Yeah. All right, so everybody's asking these great questions. I've got to step in. Mine's not going to be a great question, but we got to talk about Schumer. Can you humor me for a moment?
Oh,
what are your doesn't this just feel to you, it does to me, like what happened to Biden? Because when Nancy Pelosi comes out on that interview and is almost giddy to show that she's the godfather.
Nice sharpening. Find that soft spot in the back.
I did what I had to do, like what she said about Biden. She likes that.
Like, I never made a deal where I didn't get something. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I think, one, Nancy still likes to feel that she is truly
the kingmaker,
in charge of the Democratic Party.
I agree.
We talked about in the last segment that there is no leader, so Pelosi had their power abhors a vacuum. So if you have this former speaker that is probably still their biggest fundraiser, and now you've got Chuck, who's in a position where he did a deal and he didn't get anything from the perspective of the far left.
Right.
It is I'll put it this way. Anytime the most powerful Democrats in America are going at each other,
we're in a good place.
That's a good thing.
Yes,
that's a good thing.
And for him to have to cancel his book tour,
not because of us. Tour like the next day.
I know,
because he's going to get grief for the. So like, we can't. They said it was a security issue
from the left.
From the left.
I don't think. Yeah, I don't think he's been doing. I mean, I don't think he saw this coming. Because in the past, he could have got away with this because Democrats rally around each other.
I also think, he's been the leader a long time.
And you know what I think started? Was that rally, that anti-Musk rally where he's going, we will win, we will win.
And everybody I don't think he's been there so long. It's tough to adjust.
Yeah.
And obviously, there's been political realignment.
Yep.
He's in a different environment. He's dealing with a situation where suddenly, it's a trifecta for the Republicans.
And it's Trump's.
The image that
Washington.
came to my mind, especially so he had this problem, he does this deal the left doesn't like. Then he goes on The View.
Yeah.
And is ranting and raving about how I can't believe that people are mad about, that the government's taking all their money.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that clip of him defending or attacking people for being mad about high taxes and government waste.
Yeah.
Every Republican at every level of government is going to run that clip in every ad in 26. And the image that came to my mind was Michael Jordan in a Wizards uniform.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we're just like, okay, you were a major political player and you're done, man. You've lost your mojo.
Or even when he was on the Cubs, wasn't
Yeah,
maybe even that level.
Oh yeah,
when he
he's
played
at the Birmingham Barons.
Oh, that's what it was. Okay.
Yeah, it was the White Sox double.
Yeah, White Sox. That's what it was.
But just that,
I couldn't agree more.
He's not built for now, and I think the Democrats are sort of seeing that. And I don't know how long he's going to be leader. We'll see.
These are just a couple quick ones for. We don't have to have real discussions on them, but just what do you think? Because you are an assemblyman, and we end up talking about federal because you were congressman.
Yeah, sure.
What do you think about the mask ban? Do you think it goes through?
I don't know. So this is a good entry into the budget. So where we're at now, the state fiscal year ends Monday. It's the state fiscal year is April to March. The federal fiscal year, it's in the fall. In most municipalities, it's closer to the calendar year, these sort of things. So, but we end the fiscal year on Monday. I'm a little surprised, actually, that I'm in Corning today. I thought I'd probably be stuck in Albany right now. We're going back Tuesday, first thing in the morning. And the way the state does the budget is it's 10 budget bills in each section of the government. We've done one.
Okay. One down.
So there's still 9 to go. And I haven't seen them. We've seen the governor's proposal. We've seen the assembly's proposal. We've seen the Senate proposal. But those final negotiations are the so-called 3 people in a room. And so I have not seen budget language for the other 9 budget bills. And what tends to happen, and we'll see if it happens again, is as they sort of figure out the less controversial portions of the budget, to bring up the vote on them, and there won't be as much of this policy stuff, whether it's the mask ban or the cell phone ban or discovery reform or any of these other issues that are floating out there. And then they get to the 10th bill, and it's the last bus leaving the station.
Yeah.
And they end up calling it usually the big ugly.
Yep.
Because they dump all the stuff in at the last minute, and you see what happens. So those negotiations are still going on. Again, I have not seen bill language. We've done 1/10 of the budget bills. I'm not even going back to Albany till after the fiscal year ends.
Yeah.
So clearly, it is going 90% of the budget is going to be late. And by the way, the one we voted on was completely non-substantive. It was like a debt payment bill. So the budget is completely late, effectively.
So asking your prediction on what's going to happen is probably no sense. Meaning making it by the first.
Oh, we're not going to make it by. I know that.
Yeah.
I know
The
the budget will be late. I can tell
Breaking
you
news.
with 100% certainty, since the assembly does not come back into session until 9 a.m. on April 1st. Yeah. The budget will be late. I know that for 100% solid truth, and we'll see what mechanism they want to use to avert a shutdown. Usually, it's they extend it in a clean way for a couple days, and that usually gets a broad consensus. But sometimes governors play games with that too, and they extend it for longer, or they put something ideological in there, and these sort of things. So I will be waiting with great interest all of the bill language, and I take it very seriously. I mean, what I do is I know sort of generally what bills might come up in a particular week when the bill language is brought forward, or the agenda for the committee I'm on, or the calendar is released, usually Friday, late Friday. Over the weekend, I look at all those bills,
and I decide,
Exciting.
will I vote yes or no if this comes up? And I have a tablet with a spreadsheet of, usually about 50 bills that might be coming up, and they say, oh, we're going to vote on A1, 2, 3. Okay. I pull up, and 2 days ago I was looking at A1, 2, 3, and am I going to vote yes or no? So I take it seriously, and when the budget bills come up, I will look at them in detail, all the different budget bills, and act in what I feel is the best interest of my district and in the long-term fiscal health of the state of New York.
Right.
Which means you're probably going to get a bunch of no's from me on a lot of things. But, they will certainly be thoughtful decisions. But, I've been a budget hawk on the state budget for a long time, and you're going to see me act accordingly.
Yes. Quickly, too, because we haven't discussed the fact that you're chairman of the Steuben County
Yeah.
Republican Committee.
Yeah.
When are petitions due?
Petitions are due on Thursday.
On Thursday.
The filing period is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. They cannot be filed until they open a business on Monday, and they can't be filed after the close of business on Thursday. So this
That
year,
went quick.
yeah, I was that way. We did signatures. We're out. We're knocking. We're getting folks.
How's it look?
good.
Any
No.
surprises?
Well, we've got on the county legislative side, it looks like we're going to have a couple primaries.
Okay.
Looks like we'll have primaries in the district that's the town of Corning, Hornby, and Caton. It looks like we'll have a primary in Irwin. That at the moment, but I've heard rumors about other people circulating, and you don't know until you actually see people. You can have people circulate and then decide not to file. That has happened many times. You can have people circulate and not have enough to file. You can have people that you heard were circulating that aren't really circulating.
Yeah.
It was a rumor. So all of that will be sorted out, unless you can say whatever you want about running for this, that, or the other thing. Unless the petition is filed and is either not challenged or withstands any challenges, that is what puts people actually on the ballot in the June primary. But I am anticipating a couple of county legislative primaries, but we'll see. And in those cases, I've heard about multiple candidates running, and so there may be a situation where there's in this race 3 people circulating, but 2 make the ballot, or I don't know.
That's why this is such a weird window.
Yeah,
I probably should have had you on next week.
No, because it's good because right now it's real democracy. It's people deciding whether they want to put their name forward for an office, and we have a open legal mechanism. If you are a registered Republican and you get the requisite number of signatures, you're on the ballot, whether the powers that be want you on the ballot or not.
Yeah.
And I think that's a beautiful thing.
I do too.
And so I'm not discouraged in any way. I'm encouraged by the fact we've had so many people that want to run. So I'm feeling very positive. Our countywide races are 2 coroners races. Those are incumbents running for re-election. Those are a little less controversial. So those petitions, I'll file those petitions Monday. We're going to end up having 2 state judge positions that are up.
Oh, okay.
And we've got 2 good candidates there. So I'm feeling positive about that. So that is the top of the ticket is state judge and county coroner in Steuben County. And then we get to the county legislative, and then city races in Corning and in Hornell. So that's sort of the menu of things. In the county legislature, it's about half the county legislature is up. Some counties put all their legislature up at once. We do it staggered, where half is up every 2 years. I think that's a little better because then, it's a little bit more manageable, and also you don't have huge swings as far as what's going on in the legislature all at once. But I'm very pleased. The number of signatures we got out of the committee was great. We're going to get out of the committee more than 1,000 signatures we need to
wonderful.
put countywide candidates on the ballot. Sometimes, certainly I encourage the candidates to collect on their own, and they are, and that'll serve as sort of the cushion for them. But just from the committee, having the 1,000 is sort of the mark of a good year.
I've been so encouraged because knocking on doors, it's frustrating.
Yeah.
Right. But I've been very encouraged. I've told a lot of people this year, people seem more engaged in the local aspect. It's not just to get out on the porch.
State as well. Because I
collect signatures like any other committee person, and as the chairman and as the assemblyman, I think I went and got about 120, 130, something like that signature. And I did, I'll go get some more too. I'm not done, but so far I've done it in Canisteo, where I live, and I've had people. I'm walking down the street, they walk out of their house and I see their assemblymen walking down the street and they ask me questions, or, when I knock on their door, they want to talk about things that are happening at the state level. I was walking down the street and I had a corrections officer see me literally pull up and want to talk about the situation in the state correctional facility. So, being out and about among the people is the best way to represent the people.
Out of time. Joe, thanks for giving us so much time. The last comment from viewer, but we don't have time to discuss it. Frank, I really enjoy the downfall of Chuck, but I'm terrified of Senator Cortez. I like it Cortez, not Senator. I've never heard it other than Alexander Cortez. Anyway, we got to go. Thank you to Lulu. Happy birthday for being on.
Happy birthday, Lulu.
And thank you, Joe. We'll talk to you soon. All right. This has been Frankly Speaking. See you Monday morning at 6.